Hello, Star Trek fans. Welcome to ReBinge It. This is the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we are rebinging Star Trek Voyager from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 4, Episode 4, Nemesis. Wasn't that the name of a movie? That's not what this is.
It was a movie that came out much later than this episode, actually.
Well, this episode aired September 24th, 1997. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about last week's episode, which was Day of Honor?
Tom is a terrible boyfriend.
Yeah, he was not impressive in that episode.
Yeah, B'Elanna can do better.
Yeah, I feel like even on the ship, she could do better. Even in a limited pool. Not Chuckles, but I'm sure there's others.
Agreed.
Well, you have the notes
Yes.
this week, so over to you.
We open with armed soldiers creeping around in a jungle. And is that the right word to use? Creeping around? I don't know what to use there.
I mean, it's dark. You can't really see who the characters are yet. You're not really sure if they're, the people we know or somebody else.
Yeah.
So it does kind of look like they're creeping around.
Well, these guys appear to be tracking someone and finally catch up to them. And in a beam of a torch, we see it's Chakotay and into the opening credits.
Yeah, somebody comes up behind Chakotay and says, freeze, and then he turns around and he looks pretty rough.
Yeah.
Like he's dirty and disheveled and you're wondering, now what? Now what has he gotten himself into?
Yes. So the soldiers take Chakotay back to their camp and the commanding officer is a little disappointed in his troops because it's very clear Chakotay is obviously not one of their enemy, so just lets him go. And we get the first hints of a really interesting use of language here because they're using words like fathom as a replacement for understanding and glimpse instead of look or see. So they're doing something kind of interesting with the script here.
Yeah. They also use glimpses for eyes because at one point he says, shut your glimpses or close your glimpses or something.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we learn the commander is a team leader and he's called Bron of the 4th Vorai Defense Contingent. He actually seems pretty friendly, apologizing to Chakotay, and we learn they're fighting in a war which they call the Clash. Chakotay's shuttle was shot down when he went to investigate Omicron radiation in the planet's atmosphere when he was on a survey mission. So Voyager's now down to only 27 shuttles?
No, we remake them.
I think that's the first really good headcanon that Voyager actually just keeps on making these shuttles.
Yeah.
Bron tells us it was the Kraden who fired on him, their nemesis. They shoot down anything without Kraden colors, and even worse for Chakotay, his communicator doesn't work.
Yeah, the guy says, all dispatching in the Clash zone is suppressed. It's just another funny way of saying no comms.
Right, that sort of odd use of language. Chakotay wants to find his vessel, and Bron advises he wait until first light.
It wouldn't be sharp to return to the trunks, meaning the jungle.
Right, it's full of this weird dialogue. In the meantime, we see a ragtag group of soldiers, and Chakotay sits with the guy who captured him, and the guy gives him some of his rations or provisions, and we learn he's called Raffin. We also hear that Raffin is a completely fresh soldier, or a novice, as they call him. He's never fought before and is basically scared, and he goes on to describe the Kraden as frightening beasts and how they destroyed his village and killed his cousins and brothers while they slept. And you also see here the way Raffin is explaining it. It seems like it's very much sort of from a propaganda poster.
Yep.
Like he's recounting this as if it's sort of a mantra.
Yep.
He also describes how the Kraden leaves the bodies of their enemies face up against the tradition of his people, who bury their people face down to find the gloried way after. And also, they use the phrase nullified instead of killed. There's a little scene here where the commander wants someone to volunteer to go with Chakotay to find his shuttle, and you see Raffin is actually too frightened. He's scared and doesn't volunteer, so one of the other guys goes.
It's a lot of stereotypes of these soldiers.
Yes. And we learn that's very deliberate.
Yeah, of course.
Next day, Chakotay is walking with the soldier to find the shuttle, and we get an explanation of how the Crady beasts, as they call them, burn their villages, kill their people, and how this soldier, the Vorai, he wants to drive them from this sphere. Here, using sphere instead of planet. Arriving at the crash site, there's basically nothing left of the shuttle apart from one piece of metal. And as Chakotay looks at it, the Kraden attack, shooting and nullifying his companion. Once again proving Chakotay gets people killed. Still remembering Kaplan.
Oh, yeah, and Unity.
And that carries through to Prodigy. He got his whole crew killed.
Oh my God, he did.
And Feathers, a.k.a. Adrik.
Yes, he absolutely did.
So you get assigned with Chakotay. It's a death sentence.
The other thing here in this scene is we get a look at the Kraden. And do they not look like we've seen them before?
Oh, they're predators.
They're predators, but they also look like Nausicaans.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can see the resemblance there as well.
But predators, a good shout out, yeah. So they do kind of look like monsters, in fairness.
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely. Chakotay disarms one of the Kraden, but the rest of the troops arrive, shooting the remaining guy. So I guess the Vorai don't take prisoners?
No, they definitely don't. If they look like, I guess, the bad guys. But Chakotay should have been suspicious at this point because they weren't supposed to be going this direction, right? That was the whole thing of why he sent somebody out to walk with him. If they were all just going to walk in the same direction, what are we doing?
And they were all right there, the whole squad.
This is when Raffen goes to check his friend who got shot, and Chakotay says, "How is he?" And the guy goes, "Nullified." I don't know why that was funny, but it was.
We cut to a Vorai burial ceremony for Naaman. That's the guy who just got killed.
Nullified.
Where they... nullified. Where they place him face down. The leader, Brone, gives Chakotay his uniform, as his fleet colors will get them seen, because Chakotay is wearing that bright red top. Which is kind of true. Starfleet uniforms are not very camo.
And immediately I think, I don't want your stinky clothes. How much do these stink?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Oh, yeah. There's definitely at least one hole in that uniform.
Yeah, I thought that when they showed Chakotay in it later, why is there not a bullet hole in the chest? Because the guy got shot in the chest.
Brone also gives Chakotay a gun, telling him, when they fire, he will too. Chakotay protests, but eventually takes it, which I think this is really strange. Chakotay is something of a man of principle, but he caved really quickly here.
Well, I think he's good at de-escalating situations, and he didn't have to fire it. I mean, he just took the gun. Because at first he was like, well, I'm not going to shoot. And the guy said, if you're going to walk with us, you're going to do what I say. And I think if you are going to walk with them, then you do need to follow your leader.
I also think that this is a conflict you're not involved in.
Which is what he said.
And he's effectively a civilian.
It would have made more sense if he had said, oh, no, I'm sorry. I don't want to be part of this. I don't know anything about it. It's not my conflict. I'm going to walk by myself. But if he's going to choose to walk with them, then I don't know that he has a choice.
I find it very strange that, I don't think this is very Starfleet.
Well, they have weapons.
Yeah, but I don't think Starfleet protocol would be you get involved in the conflict if they tell you to.
No, definitely not.
I mean, we've kind of seen that happen before, that they don't get involved.
Yeah, definitely.
And here Chakotay is folding immediately and going, sure.
I don't think that's what he's doing. I think he's just like, yeah, I'll take your gun, fine, if it's just going to, get us moving. He didn't say, okay, I'll start shooting people. I don't know. I think he was just taking the path of least resistance. That's the way I viewed it.
Yeah.
But,
you wouldn't see Picard doing this.
Well, but they have weapons.
But Picard wouldn't get involved in the war.
No. But he'd have a weapon to defend himself.
Yes, to defend himself.
Yeah.
But here he's saying, if this guy orders them to shoot, Chakotay should shoot.
That's
the problem.
I don't think he is agreeing to that. I think he's just saying, fine, I'll take your gun
we can
just get going. I'm not going to argue with you.
So he'll bend his principles just to make it easy.
He's not bending them until he shoots, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't see Picard doing this.
I think Picard, too, especially if he was trying to be undercover or keep a low profile, would just take the gun and just go.
Yeah.
You got to protect yourself. You're not necessarily saying I'm taking sides. If you really want to take a stand, you should separate from the group. Maybe he's a little shaken because of what just happened, and he feels responsible because he kind of got the guy killed.
Interesting. If it had been Janeway, I know exactly what would happen with Janeway. Mm-hmm. Have you got a bigger gun?
Yeah, where are the big guns? This gun is very small.
Can I get the squad automatic weapon? I think I need something that big.
Yeah, like one that you have to wear because it's so heavy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. She wants the Vasquez gun.
Yeah.
Into a scene where Raffen is now teaching Chakotay how to accurately fire with a rifle, which is probably a good idea considering how badly everyone from Starfleet seems to shoot. So I think this would also probably take a very long time.
Only Worf and Guinan were good shots.
We get some more background on Raffin because his brothers and cousins fought in the clash, and he blames himself for Naaman's death because he didn't volunteer to help Chakotay, because he was scared, or as he calls it, the coward's trembles. Chakotay tells him that's normal. He's been in battle before against the Cardassians, and he was always fearful before a fight. There's a great line here with the language, and Raffin saying, "Wrestle your trembles to rages." I thought that was a really good line there.
Yeah, it's interesting because they're using all words that we know. They're just using them differently than we would normally use them, like glimpse for eyes or look or see. And it sounds almost poetic the way that they do it because it feels...
That's a good description.
Yeah, it feels kind of sing-songy and colorful, and they have this sort of interesting cadence when they speak. So I really quite like that.
It's night again, and they're moving through the jungle, and they run across a dead Vorai soldier. He's pinned to the ground face up and has been left to die. Chakotay describes this as desecrated by the Kraden, which apparently is one of the things that they do.
Yep.
Brown sends Raffin ahead to find the 7th contingent, but finds they're all dead, or rather nullified.
Nullified.
And worse, they're all upturned. The angry Brown asks Chakotay, "Do you glimpse the fullness of it now, stranger?" Chakotay just replies, "Yes, I think I do." Brown decides this is the best moment to give a little pep talk, resulting in all the troops cheering and totally giving away their position.
Yep.
Immediately coming under fire. I think we might see why the Kraden are winning.
Maybe.
A firefight ensues, with everyone shooting. Even Chakotay.
Yep.
Raffin stands up, firing, while shouting, "Motherless beasts," and is immediately hit.
Now that's the Starfleet way.
Yes, that's the Starfleet technique.
We saw Harry do that exact thing in Worst Case Scenario, remember?
Right!
Ah! Oh, you're dead.
Well, Raffin dies, while Chakotay tries to help him. Chakotay turns him to face down and flees into the jungle. It's now morning, and an injured Chakotay staggers into a village clearing to be greeted as a defender by the villagers, and a very young girl puts a garland around his neck, welcoming him to Lahana Settlement.
Oh, we're in Hawaii.
Cut to Janeway recording a log. Stardate 51082.4. I'm sure you needed to know that, Kim.
No, I'm good.
She records, after 2 days of searching, they've found what was left of Chakotay's shuttle. Tuvok tells her the ambassador informs them Chakotay's shuttle was shot down by enemy fire and crashed right in the middle of the war zone. Harry reports they can't scan the surface as there's too much atmospheric radiation from weapons fire. And I'm sure Kim has a comment here.
Yes, I literally wrote that down. What are you even talking about?
Okay, headcanon. Chakotay made a comment about the Omicron radiation, I believe it was, in the atmosphere.
He did. Mm-hmm.
Perhaps that there is significant radioisotope concentrations above this particular war zone, along with maybe deliberate scattering for scanners, so they can't actually get a lock any of that area.
Okay, we'll say that, but atmospheric radiation from weapons fire is crazy talk. We can scan, I mean, how much radiation do we get from the sun in the atmosphere?
Okay, yes, a lot.
I just thought that was absolutely ridiculous. I rewound it so I would write it down. I didn't know if you would write it down too, but so dumb.
I heard that line and knew you would not like it.
There's always an excuse about why we can't do something. And it's like, just use the same excuse. Don't make up these stupid ones.
A really simple one would be they have scanner scatterers.
Yeah, that would have been one. Or, many times we can't find somebody because they don't have their badge on. He's not wearing his uniform. I don't know where his uniform is.
Well, there's also the rock formations that contain certain
the rocks.
Trace elements.
Yeah. Can't scan through the rocks. What?
Neelix gives us some background on the war. The ambassador's people have been fighting against a particularly savage aggressor for more than a decade. He's willing to help them, but his resources are limited. Tom wants to land an away team on the surface to try and find Chakotay, but Janeway doesn't allow it, mostly because she knows Tom would be dead in under an hour.
And Tuvok is like, we don't even know if he's alive, which is not the normal Tuvok. He's not normally the one who says stuff like that.
You pointed out Tuvok's back to Tuvok the Downer.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump straight to the worst case scenario.
But when other people do it, he says, we don't have enough evidence, or, we can't really make that conclusion yet. But with Janeway, he's like, nah, he's probably dead. And then I was thinking, maybe he's like, it's probably logical if he's fallen into a war zone and he doesn't really know either side, doesn't know what he's fallen into. Maybe it's logical. Or maybe he's just happy to be rid of Chuckles and he hopes Janeway will just go, oh, yeah, you're right, and drive away.
Captain, can we discuss my promotion?
I would make an excellent first officer.
Yeah, exactly. Back to the village, and Chakotay explains his situation. One villager calls him glorified defender, even if he claims not to be, and they tell him of a restock unit where he can use the comms to call his ship. When the villagers leave, the young girl comes back to talk to Chakotay. She tells him how the Kraden take their plantings, kill their brothers, and she asks, why do they hate us? Chakotay tells her he doesn't know. Hate is not something he understands very well. She goes on to tell him her brother is a commander of the 7th Contingent, which is the one who all got killed earlier in the show.
Yeah.
And Chakotay avoids telling her that.
He's like,
yeah, I'm sure they're fine.
I'm sure everything's fine.
She asks him to take a letter to her brother, and she rushes off to write it. Chakotay seems a little bit upset about this. He's got kind of a look.
Yeah. I was a little worried in this episode that it was going to be like, we're going to offer up a young woman to Chakotay or the soldier or something. Because I didn't know yet what the story was. And I was like, oh, please don't do that. And they didn't. So I was happy about that. But they did do that in Deep Space Nine.
Next morning, the villagers bid him farewell, giving him food for the long walk. And the young girl gives him the letter for her brother. As he walks through the jungle, we see 2 planes fly overhead in the direction of the village. And he hears firing and explosions. And he begins to run back. He arrives finding the village in ruins and the Kraden rounding up the villagers. And he's immediately captured.
Yeah.
So I guess that's his Starfleet training, or maybe that's the Maquis training coming into effect.
Yeah, his guerrilla skills, not good.
This is why the Maquis got entirely wiped out. Back on Voyager, they've determined that Chakotay was not killed in the shuttle crash, much to Tuvok's disappointment.
Yeah.
But he did go down in enemy territory. Tuvok explains Ambassador Treen's people call the enemy the Nemesis, and they sound pretty nasty, using biochemical weapons and routinely massacring civilians. This just sounds like Cardassians, really.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, wait a minute. It was Captain Sisko who used chemical weapons on the Maquis.
To poison the whole planet.
Yeah, I hated that episode. Talk about writing out of character. Sisko.
Yeah, that was bad.
War criminal. Yeah, terrible. Janeway wants a team on the surface. Tom's extremely eager to go, but Tuvok's plan is only he'll go to the surface, along with a commando unit Ambassador Treen has provided for them. Don't you think the next shot should have been Janeway getting down her really big rifle
I'm going.
and saying, Tuvok, I've decided to come along. Betsy's got some killing to do.
Why was Tom so eager? Was he just bored? Was it another one of those episodes? Like, he doesn't care about Chakotay.
I know. It seemed like he really wanted to rescue Chakotay. They never seemed that close.
Yeah. Maybe he was concerned that there hadn't been a Tom episode in a very long time.
To me, it feels like the person who should be reacting this way would be B'Elanna.
Yeah. Because she's been overly protective of Chakotay before. Mm-hmm.
They've served together. She's Klingon, so she's not going to walk away from a possible fight to save a friend.
I think Tom's bored.
You know, that's also a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the surface, and the Kraden put Chakotay with the villagers. The young girl's grandfather is missing, and when Chakotay demands to know what they did with him, the Kraden guard just smacks him in the head with his gun. That was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Next morning, they're woken by shouting. The Kraden are separating out the old villagers and marching them to an extermination facility because they wouldn't be good servers. Kreia, the young girl, runs to her grandfather, begging for the Kraden to let him loose. But the guard restrains her as she struggles and pleads, the commander finally ordering the screeching waif to be taken to the extermination facility too. Kreia pleads to Chakotay for help, and he's had enough, knocking the guard to the ground and attacking the Kraden commander, calling him a motherless beast. But this wasn't really a well-thought-out plan, as Chakotay is quickly clubbed to the ground. Back to Voyager, and the ambassador and his soldiers are being beamed aboard. And here's the big twist. They're the Kraden. Janeway thanks him for his help, and he replies, any victims of our bloodthirsty nemesis, the Vorai, will always find friends among the Kraden people. And they shake hands.
Yeah, that was a big twist.
That was so skillfully executed. There wasn't even a hint that the roles are actually reversed. Very well done.
Yeah, I never remember what these episodes are about. And as I was watching it and they showed the Kraden the first time and you don't hear them speak and you don't really interact with them. They just turn up with guns and then they're dead or not dead, whatever. But I remember looking at them early in this episode and going, there's something about them, but I can't remember what it was. And then when they beamed onto Voyager, I was like, oh, twist. You got me.
Nicely done. Back to the planet, and Chakotay has been staked out on the ground. But Brone has reappeared and cuts him loose. This guy keeps on turning up everywhere.
He reminds me of the guy from The 100.
Never watched it.
It looks like him. It wasn't great.
It was no Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, heavens, no. It was a CW show.
All of Brone's troops are dead, but he's heading to join the 5th contingent to try and save the villagers. And Chakotay volunteers to go with him, telling him, in the now, you need my help to nullify the Nemesis. So Chakotay is fully on board.
Yeah.
And even using their language.
Well, there was the part in the evening before when he's with the little girl and he tells her to go to sleep, but he says, close your glimpses. And you're like, uh-oh, he started to turn. Now he's speaking their language. Yeah, and then in this one, he uses all the lingo.
Fast cut to a firefight, and Chakotay is getting stuck in. He's firing away, definitely part of the team. They retreat, but there's an explosion, knocking them all to the ground. And we hear an announcement. The Vorai are surrounded and should surrender. Chakotay keeps firing, but one of the Kraden walks out from the brush, saying, hold your fire, Commander Chakotay. Chakotay asks how he knows his name, and the Kraden tells him. He's Lieutenant Tuvok, but strangely, it's clearly a Kraden. The Kraden tells him he's there to take him back to Voyager, that Chakotay's been brainwashed, urging him to look closer, Commander. And we hear the first little hints of Tuvok's voice, and the Kraden begins to shimmer a little. He explains, your shuttle was shot down. These people, the Vorai, captured you, indoctrinated you, trained you to fight in their war. And they keep sliding into Tuvok's normal voice. That's really nicely done. Tuvok continues saying, you're not a killer. And suddenly, the Kraden turns into Tuvok. Chakotay asks, how can you wear those colors? The Kraden, they're beasts, murderers. Tuvok replies, on the contrary, they're the ones who helped us locate you. They tracked him down to a Vorai training camp, but before today, nothing he experienced was real. Tuvok continues to explain, saying, the Vorai conscript and train their soldiers this way. Chakotay lowers his weapon, and Tuvok takes him back to the village. And the exact same scenario plays out. The old man welcoming the defender, and the young girl running out and putting a garland around his neck.
Yeah, all the people he just saw get carted away are back where they were a few days ago at this point.
The program has reset.
Yeah.
Back to Voyager, and Janeway recording a log. She notes, it may be some time before Chakotay's psychological wounds are fully healed. In sickbay, the doctor explains the Vorai use a combination of mind control techniques, saying from the state of Chakotay's hypothalamus, they could have convinced him his own mother was a turnip.
I thought that was wildly inappropriate language. It's like, dude.
Janeway explains it was all fake, except the battle Tuvok rescued him from. Chakotay's attacking the commandant at the village marked his graduation from basic training. She goes on to explain the soldiers he fought with and the villagers were all parts of a simulation to make him bond with them and be enraged at their deaths. The Vorai have dozens of these facilities where they conscript their own people and any aliens they're able to capture. So it's like the future version of a press gang.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it was an old, I think it was only the British Navy, where they basically would capture sailors, put them on a ship, and force them into naval service.
Oh, jeez.
Chakotay explains he hated the Kraden. He wanted to kill every one of them. And Janeway replies, evidently, that was the point.
It worked.
Neelix now enters sickbay with the Ambassador Treen in tow, who tells Chakotay how pleased his people are to hear of his recovery. Chakotay just looks at him blankly, and the ambassador asks if he's said something wrong, and Chakotay excuses himself. Janeway follows, and Chakotay tells her, I wish it was as easy to stop hating as it was to start. And Janeway just watches concerned as he walks away. The end.
Well, Do you have over-analysis?
Funny you should say
It's
that.
not a very complicated episode, honestly.
No.
Yeah.
My first point is, you have a guy who's just suffered severe emotional trauma, engineered trauma, and you're letting someone he was programmed to hate just walk straight up to him?
Just walk right up to him without warning, even.
What the hell, people?
Yeah, we are... we're not respecting the mental health challenges of this trauma.
Yeah. Yes, and this induced trauma in the guy who's been programmed.
They know what happened.
This way. Yeah.
So what are you doing?
Right. On top of everything, that exposure could have a really negative effect on Chakotay.
Yeah.
Did we not think about mental health in the 90s?
No. Suck it up. Walk it off.
Walk it off.
Yeah. I remember my dad saying that to my brother when his arm was broken. It's like,
ouch.
Well, they didn't see it.
Yeah.
But, why you wouldn't assume it was rough. Like, if we think about that episode where Harry was taken to, well, first they went to the asteroid with all the dead bodies, and then Harry went to the other planet, and then he had to die to come back or whatever. Right. And at the end, Janeway, tells him to take all the time he needs to sort of think through what happened to him and adjust to it. But here, something super traumatic has happened to Chakotay.
Yeah.
In his brain, he was just convinced of something that wasn't true to the point that he couldn't even see Tuvok.
Yes, right.
And so we think he's just over it.
You're good, right? You're fine?
Yeah, everything's fine. You took a shower, you look good.
Yeah, and the doctor pointing out how much they'd done to his hypothalamus.
Yeah. Well, again, takes it too lightly.
Yes. Yeah, almost like a joke.
Making a joke. Yeah. Where's Kes when you need her?
Oh, good point. Where is Tuvok to do, if you like, mental deprogramming? Yeah. This would be a perfect use of, the Vulcan meditation techniques to help Chakotay understand reality, that he was manipulated and programmed.
Right.
This is almost like last week with 7 of 9 and the cult deprogramming from the Borg. This would be the same kind of thing.
It's
and Janeway was incredibly understanding in that situation.
Yeah. Tuvok should be debriefing him.
Yes.
Not just going, here's the person you've been completely brainwashed to hate. You're fine, right?
So they basically brainwash their own people. Mm-hmm. They program their own people this way. It makes me wonder how unpopular on the homeworld the Vorai war effort is.
Because they have to brainwash people?
Yeah, because they have to program them and kidnap aliens.
Well, they maybe don't have to program them to be soldiers, but maybe they're just trying to elevate it so that they're actually quite brutal.
Yeah, right. Okay, I see that. You don't want soldiers, you want killers.
Right, because if this thing that they're convincing them of isn't really happening, if the Kraden aren't really invading their homeworld and attacking, as they said, their mothers and their sisters, if that's not really happening, then they probably do need some way to get them all hyped up.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Right. It sounded like the Kraden were actually the planet that have been invaded by these people. That the Kraden are trying to defend their homeworld.
Yeah. But they didn't really have all the info. At one point, when Chakotay asked the question, is that real? Are the Kraden really doing this thing to the Vorai?
Yeah.
Janeway says, we don't know. So we don't really know what's going on.
Well, there's a little bit of ambiguity in there because they make the comment about how both sides accuse each other of atrocities. So we don't know who is telling the truth here.
Do you remember the Moon of Idiots?
That is my next point. That is hilarious. My next point is this the Moon of Idiots?
That's what it reminds me of.
Also known as Battle Lines in Deep Space Nine.
That was one of the early episodes of Deep Space Nine that I quite liked.
It was a great episode.
Yeah, but it was a moon. It was a whole moon full of idiots. Yeah, they were in constant battle with each other. They couldn't talk to each other to try to stop it. So similar here, I think.
Oh, and they'd been fighting for centuries at that point. So this very much gave me that vibe.
Yeah.
Next thing, and this is going back to something I said earlier. Chakotay taking the gun. Thinking about it some more. Do you think it's because the mental programming was already having an effect with him? Or do you think, or your take was he needs to defend himself, so he would take the gun? He wouldn't necessarily follow the orders to fight, but he would want to defend himself in a war zone.
Yeah. I mean, before that exact moment, he hadn't even seen the bad guys, the Nemesis. But at that point, he had. And he had walked one of the soldiers into death, basically. And the guy got shot in front of him. And then the two, Creighton got shot right in front of him. So he hadn't quite experienced it before. But once he'd experienced it, maybe he was already, starting to turn a little bit. And because he'd also been through a night of them talking about what the Creighton had been doing to their families,
the villagers,
and the villagers, right? And they told him a bunch of terrible stories. I mean, really, if he thought about it, they were all very vague. There was no specific detail given about anything. It was just all that's so terrible. What they do is terrible. So I imagine, yes, he was already part of it by then. Yeah. But it really wasn't, I think, in my overanalysis, it's like the turning point. They found the thing that really turned him was the little girl.
Right. Do you think they are customizing, that they're tailoring this to fit what works for Chakotay?
The AI?
Yes. Because Chakotay, Chakotay's background with fighting for the Marquis and the way that they were treated by the Cardassians, do you think this is either pulling from Chakotay's memory or they figured out, this is what will trigger him. This is how we can make it work?
I don't think they were pulling from his memories, but I do think they could have been monitoring his emotional responses to things. Yeah. How did he respond to these different things that went on? And when it was the kid and the little girl, that got him. Probably because from his point of view, from the Starfleet training and just from who he is as a person, the people who are helpless are the ones vulnerable, that he is going to jump to support.
That's what I was thinking, that this was tailored to him. What gets Chakotay to go from, what was it, trembles to rage?
It's like a choose your own adventure. How you react changes the story.
The most awful version of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that wraps up my overanalysis. Over to you.
Okay. I don't have a lot. We already sort of talked about one of them. And the other thing was, I did appreciate the progression that they showed in Chakotay.
Yeah.
We saw him turn the guy over to respect their whatever their customs are. And then he would start to use some of the words. And then he was speaking the language. Yep. Then he was just killing, right? He just sort of progressed to it. And I think that's hard to do in a 46-minute episode. I like that they did that. It was easier to believe, even though you thought the very first step of him taking the gun was maybe a bit abrupt, and maybe it was. I think it progressed from there pretty clearly.
Yeah.
If I go to women in the future, really not much to say. There could have been some women soldiers, and there were some weird comments like, close your glimpses and dream about your sisters and mothers. I thought that was very weird.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, what does that mean?
I think they are missing a significant amount of the population that they're not using women in the combat situation.
Yeah, you can really make women mad. I mean, if that's what you're trying to do at this training, I think that would work. They'd come through. Or they go, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Why are we fighting these people? If I go to Janeway's Leadership Corner, again, we kind of covered this already, but the stuff at the end with just the total lack of respect for the trauma that their crewmate went through is terrible. The doctor made a joke. Don't joke in those situations. It was the whole episode is very dark. And then I get when he inappropriately says stuff all the time, but this is ridiculous at this point. And for Janeway to not even react to it because she's standing right there.
Yeah.
And then she allows them to just walk right in with this so-called monster.
Without any deprogramming.
Not respecting it.
What's the plan for deprogramming Chakotay?
Yeah, I don't...
That piece at the end was, suck it up, dude.
Yeah, that was a real lack of compassion for a member of the crew. And I do think a lot of that is down to the 90s. We just didn't really accept that trauma was something that we all had, and it's really best to try to deal with it, not just push it down.
I have a theory about this. Maybe this is headcanon.
Yeah.
I feel maybe there's an element of this episode that is the Vietnam War. And that scene at the end is a comment on the lack of mental health
it could be
treatment for veterans and a recognition that veterans need that sort of support and mental health support after coming back from highly traumatic situations. So perhaps that was a little commentary on that.
Yeah, I think you can read it that way. I'm not sure they really landed that.
Yeah.
But I think if that is what they were trying to do, okay, good. But that's a stretch.
It might be a little bit of a stretch.
A little bit of a stretch. We talked about this resembling that Moon of Idiots episode. Yeah. I also thought a little bit about Hard Time, where
yes,
Miles is in a prison in his mind for decades, right?
Yep.
And he has to come back to work and just act like nothing happened. Yeah. And he's suicidal, essentially, at the end because he's not getting the right kind of support. They were trying to support him, though, I would say.
Yes.
But I think it's a similar story here.
Right. They both suffered mental programming to make them behave a particular way.
And Miles did go to the invisible counselor. They talked about it, but we never saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't he have like 2 sessions a week with the invisible counselor we never ever saw?
Yeah. And I think the challenge was he wasn't really talking about what was happening to him because he was still seeing the imaginary person.
Right.
But yeah.
Hard Time. Very good episode. People should go and listen to that podcast and watch the episode.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an excellent episode. So let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
What a fantastic episode. Criticisms aside, and plus my headcanon interpretation of scenes, I think this is a fantastic episode showing, if you like, the danger of media programming of how people should think and behave.
Yep.
It's as relevant today as it was when they made it. Might even be more relevant today than it was when they made it. But I think it shows how you can manipulate people into thinking a particular way, how propaganda works. It doesn't matter if it's true. If you lie to them in a particular way that appeals to them, they'll believe it.
You say it enough times.
And I think it was a really well-acted episode. And I think you hit upon this. The progression of Chakotay going from, I don't want to get involved in your conflict, to let's kill them all.
Yeah.
What a fantastic episode. This is another one of those episodes that I remember everything about this episode. I don't know how many times I rewatched it. It's absolutely solid and it works today. I think that ending is a commentary on society forgetting that not all wounds are battlefield scars, that there's an emotional content, there's a psychological content that some people have difficulty recovering from.
Yeah.
In summary, 2 thumbs up. Really well done.
Yeah, I agree. This is a good episode. I give it a thumbs up. Yeah, it's so relevant today. It's frightening. Where we have propaganda on our televisions all the time. And if you just have it on, it's been proven that just have that on constantly. That's all you're watching. You are going to eventually believe it. And there are people who just say the same thing over and over. It doesn't matter if it's true, because if they say it over and over, the people are going to believe it. And so, yes, quite relevant, painfully relevant, really, especially with hate. It's really easy, apparently, to convince people what to hate. And it's shocking.
So on that happy note,
that wraps up a grim episode. But, Star Trek throws those grim ones out.
Yes.
And I would complain on Deep Space Nine that it's not a show about war. And it isn't. I don't want it to be a show about war. This one was a little bit different because it was really about how you can be convinced to hate. And it's that last line was the Star Trek line where he said, I wish it was as easy to stop hating as it was to start. That's the Star Trek line right there.
And what's so interesting about that is Chakotay recognizes this.
Yeah.
He's been told this. He's been told what's happened. He has an understanding of it. And it's still a problem for him.
It's hard to undo something. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, on to other things.
Yes.
That wraps up Season 4, Episode 4. Come back next week for Episode 5. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own overanalysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at ReBingeIT@gmail.com. We're also on Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and YouTube at ReBingeIT. And you can join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.